If the Porsche 984 had gone into production, the history of affordable roadsters could have looked completely different. Before the Mazda MX-5 became an icon, and before the Boxster helped save Porsche in the 1990s, Weissach already had an idea for a small, light, more accessible Porsche for younger drivers. It was not meant to shock with power. It was not meant to fight the 911, and it was not supposed to be another expensive Grand Tourer. It was meant to be simple, fast thanks to low weight, aerodynamic, and focused on pure driving pleasure. The Porsche 984, also known as the Junior, was exactly that kind of project. A compact roadster from the 1980s that could have become the spiritual successor to the 914 and the predecessor to the Boxster. It was so sensible that it became dangerous for the accountants. Small, light, sporty, but too expensive to launch during a crisis. Today, it remains one of the most fascinating what-if stories in Porsche history. The origins of the 984 project lead to an unusual cooperation between Porsche and Seat. In the early 1980s, the Spanish brand was separating itself from Fiat and needed its own technical identity. Porsche developed system Porsche engines for Seat, used in models such as the Ibiza, Ronda, and Malaga. The cooperation went even further. The idea appeared for a small sports car called PS, meaning Porsche Seat. It was supposed to be a lightweight roadster with a 4-cylinder engine, a low body, and a futuristic bubble-style roof. But the project did not survive on Seat's side, especially after the brand moved into Volkswagen's orbit. Porsche, however, did not throw the idea away. In Weissach, engineers believed that the concept of a cheap, lightweight roadster could become a true Porsche. That is how the Junior was born, the internal project, 984. Porsche developed it from 1984 to 1987 as a compact, lightweight, aerodynamic roadster, inspired by the earlier Seat Commission. The idea was very clear. The Porsche 984 was meant for younger customers who wanted sports car emotion, but could not afford a 911, a 944, or a 928. The planned price was around 40,000 German marks, or about $14,000 according to some materials, placing it below Porsche's models of the time. The car was supposed to be light, economical to run, and fuel efficient, but still fast enough to deserve the Stuttgart crest. This matters because Porsche wasn't trying to build a small car for the masses, like an ordinary convertible. The 984 had to keep typical Porsche handling, rear-wheel drive, compact construction, and technical distinctiveness. Instead of huge power, the focus was low resistance, good aerodynamics, and a weight below 900 kilograms. Porsche's own description emphasized that the goal was dynamic driving achieved through low drag, not through a massive engine. Technically, the project went through several stages. The original Porsche Seat PS was supposed to use an inline 4-cylinder system Porsche engine. After Porsche took over the idea, the concept became more brand-focused. Engineers considered a new air-cooled 2-liter flat-4 engine, producing around 120 to 150 horsepower. It was meant to connect the car with the tradition of the 356, the 914, and the 911, while remaining compact and light. In the running prototype, however, Porsche used an older modified 4-cylinder unit from the 914, enlarged to around 2.4 liters, and producing about 135 horsepower. The engine worked with a 5-speed manual gearbox, sending power to the rear wheels. A 4-wheel drive version was also considered, especially with motorsport in mind, but it remained only an idea. The dimensions of the 984 showed just how compact this Porsche was meant to be. The prototype measured about 3.8 meters long, around 1.59 meters wide, and roughly 1.17 meters tall. Its weight was expected to be around 880 kilograms. In practice, this meant a car almost the size of the later Mazda MX-5, but with Porsche engineering and a completely different character. With about 135 horsepower, The performance figures did not look extreme on paper, but thanks to the low weight, they were very respectable. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour was estimated at around 8 seconds, and top speed at about 220 kilometers per hour, or even slightly more in some descriptions. This was exactly the spirit that would later define the best lightweight roadsters. Not brutal power, but balance, response, and control. One of the most interesting elements of the Porsche 984 was its roof. Porsche did not want an ordinary soft, flapping fabric top. The plan included an innovative folding hardtop that would hide behind the seats. Earlier mock-ups and drawings also showed transparent futuristic solutions, and the PS project even had a distinctive double-bubble roof. In the junior version, the roof became more practical and taller, because the first ideas limited headroom too much. This shows how Porsche tried to find a compromise between style, aerodynamics, and real usability. Had the car entered production, it could have anticipated the folding hardtop trend by many years. Such systems became popular in roadsters and coupe cabriolets much later. The suspension was another area where the 984 was ahead of its time. The rear axle used a multi-link design developed by Georg Voll. This idea did not disappear with the 984 project. Solutions developed for the Junior later influenced other Porsche projects, and a similar rear suspension philosophy eventually appeared in the production 911, Generation 993. That is important, because even though the 984 never became a production model, it was not a dead end. Porsche treated it as a laboratory. The same applied to ergonomics, interior layout, and the use of existing components. The prototype's cabin used parts known from the 944. The seats resembled those from the 928. Handles and details came from other models, and everything was arranged to control costs. The project had to be new, but it could not become a financial fantasy. Stylistically, the Porsche 984 looked like the missing link between the 914, the 928, the 944, and the later Boxster. The front had soft, rounded lines, and headlights reminiscent of the 928 design language. The side profile was simple, low, and very clean, without excessive decoration. The rear, with its wide lights, previewed certain solutions later seen in the 911, Generation 993. The car was not dramatic like an Italian concept, but it had Porsche's typical functional logic. Some details looked like they came from a parts catalog, because they actually did. Mirrors, handles, interior elements, and equipment were selected to save time and money. As a result, the 984 looked like a car close to production, not just a show car sculpture. And that is exactly why its cancellation hurt so much. It was not an abstract vision, but a real prototype. So why did the Porsche 984 never reach production? The main reason was money. In the second half of the 1980s, Porsche was struggling with sales, especially because of the falling value of the dollar, which badly affected exports to the United States. The project was meant to be an affordable model, but an affordable Porsche was not affordable to develop. A new structure, a new engine, a folding hardtop, possible four-wheel drive, and Porsche quality standards all meant costs that could not easily be recovered at a low-selling price. In 1987, the market situation became even worse, and Porsche started cutting expenses. According to sources, the project ended after 4 years of work, and the running prototype was parked in 1988. Porsche itself points to the sales crisis caused by the falling dollar in 1987 as the reason the 984 program was ended early. How many Porsche 984s were built? In production terms, 0. If we talk about real complete cars, the answer is usually one running prototype preserved by Porsche. There were also mock-ups, styling models, drawings, and earlier Porsche Seat PS variants, but this was never a series of cars. The original 984 survived because Porsche has a remarkable habit of preserving its own prototypes. Today, the car remains part of the factory's history and is associated with the brand's museum collection. That makes it practically unreachable for private collectors. It is not a car that appears at auctions. It has no catalog value, and it cannot be compared with a normal production classic. It is more a Porsche development artifact than a regular collector car. How much could the Porsche 984 be worth today? Honestly, there is no reliable market price because the car has never been publicly sold. But if Porsche ever released the only running prototype at a prestigious auction, its value could be enormous, not because it has huge power or racing history, but because it is the missing link between the 914 and the Boxster, one of Porsche's most important unrealized projects, and the only surviving proof of an idea that could have changed the roadster market. A cautious estimate would be several million euros, probably somewhere between 2 and 5 million euros, and possibly more with the right auction and story behind it. But that is only a collector estimate, not a confirmed transaction value. As a factory and museum object, the 984 is practically priceless. The greatest irony of the Porsche 984 story is that, only a few years later, the world proved that such a car made sense. The Mazda MX-5 debuted in 1989 and became the world's most popular roadster. The Porsche Boxster was shown as a concept in 1993, and the production version arrived in 1996, playing a major role in Porsche's financial recovery. Of course, the Boxster was larger, more powerful, more expensive, and used a mid-mounted 6-cylinder Boxer engine. But the idea was similar: a more accessible Porsche, 2 seats, open bodywork, and a focus on handling. The 984 was therefore an early warning sign of something that later became crucial. It did not save Porsche, but it may have helped the brand understand that such a car would one day be needed. The Porsche 984 remains one of the most fascinating non-production models in the brand's history because it was not a crazy concept detached from reality. It was logical, light, technically interesting, and very close to Porsche's core philosophy. It had everything needed to create a cult roadster: low weight, rear-wheel drive, a simple engine, good aerodynamics, compact dimensions, and true engineering focus. It only lacked the right moment. Had it been built, it could have beaten the MX-5 to market, changed the lower end of Porsche's range, and perhaps brought the Boxster idea to life almost a decade earlier. Instead, it was locked away in storage and became a secret for enthusiasts. But that is exactly what makes it so interesting. The Porsche 984 is a car that never had a career, yet its shadow can still be seen in one of the most important decisions Porsche made in the 1990s.